Here we go.
Sorry about that, folks. We had it muted. We are now back in action. We went round table. You didn't miss anything. And so we'll just do welcome for the folks that are joining us remotely. Thank you for doing that. I see Darren Rankasoon. And I see Vince Carlson down from Monroe.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes,
Rudy
good morning.
Albert, we see you, Rudy. Thank you calling in from the airport. Keith Weston. Thanks, Rudy. And is that Axel Rodriguez?
That is correct.
Hi, Axel. Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
Keith, you with us? Keith Weston? We see you there.
Here. I'm
wonderful.
here.
Thank you so much. Okay, Chief, back to you. We're good on
All
four,
right.
sir.
We're
on
good.
four, yeah.
So the award for longest distance travel to get to the meeting probably should go to John, right?
Yeah.
From Atlanta.
Thank you for coming. And we need to do a vote to approve the minutes for the May 15th South Florida LEPC meeting. Should have been sent out to everybody. Motion to approve.
I second it.
Motion to approve.
All right, we have Mr. Schechter for the motion and Georgie for the second.
All right. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, minutes are approved. Membership changes. Chief Kenneth Yost, the member from Broward Sheriff's Office, Fire Rescue and Emergency Services, along with Captain Virginia Gerlardo as the alternate from BSO as well.
And Chief, I know that they would have liked to have been here, but Captain Giardo is today up at the Publix facility with our partner from Airgas, who's gonna be sponsoring our October training. So, I spoke with him yesterday. I was over at the station and he confirmed that he would be there this morning. So he sends his best and says thank you to everyone.
Yes, he's been on vacation, so I know he's been missed, and I saw the conflict, or I learned of the conflict this morning, so. Also Amy Hernandez as the member for BioWatch. DHS Weapons of Mass Destruction.
Chief, just if I could add, so Amy was with us with Broward College. She took this new position with BioWatch, and she's also a veteran. So Amy, I don't know if you're on now, but I'll get it on public record. Thank you for your service and welcome back.
So it's just a switch and a roll.
Yes, sir.
And that's all I had for membership changes, unless we had anything that was a late addition. So for the chair's report, I'll say this. In my long history with the LEPC in a couple roles, I can tell you that this is probably the most actions, both on the training task force, different initiatives, and some high priority involvement that we've had in collaboration with stakeholders. So it's good to be a part of, and you thank everybody for their participation and volunteering. Thank you to Charlene and the Regional Planning Council, because we're getting a lot of very positive work done. And that'll be obvious too on some of the stuff that we report here. So at the CERC meeting, that was out in Sarasota, just to kind of update on the offshore hazmat pilot. They concluded their last pilot. So the offshore hazmat class really was something that was born 12 years ago. And until pretty recently, about a year and a half ago, they were still stuck in pilot. So some of the local stakeholders here in the region, from fire rescue, from Broward, Hollywood, Fort Lauderdale, and Sunrise, participated and gave feedback. They were very willing to accept the feedback. And I can tell you now that with the partnership with, it's housed now, the decision was made to house that class permanently at Resolve. It works off of a grant in conjunction with NOVA. And it is now going to be a model for the nation on this type of class. And what it does is it kind of acts as a stopgap measure from the time that a US Coast Guard response team could arrive at an incident offshore using local and regional assets. So it's a pretty unique class. It has a lot of collaboration between hazmat, some maritime industry, familiarization and technical rescue. And I think the latest addition is the use of technology with drones too for recon. So excited to be a part of it. So the lithium ion symposium, both Oscar from the training task force here will speak in a little bit, and myself have been working directly with the state fire marshal's office and the training bureau to assist in the lithium ion symposium. And it will be, thankfully, the date was changed. The dates for the symposium are September 12th and 13th. I believe there's still some spots available. I know that it was very popular and sold out last year. And I think they're expecting about the same, and definitely worth, if you have any interest in lithium ion, anywhere from just kind of learning what the dangers are all the way to some very advanced classes. That's the place in the state of Florida to go to. Everybody who's anybody, from engineers, from the inspection side, the EV side, will all be there. So our role in assisting the state is going to be twofold. Oscar will tell you a little bit about the research board when he comes up, but we're also doing a demonstration on best tactics and kind of what we've learned over the last year on some of the incidents that have occurred. So should be exciting. So the PFAS update, basically the PFAS was put into federal regulation, but not funded for the PFAS recycling or to take it off everybody's hands. So I think my personal opinion is it's going to be a very long and costly recovery for a lot of the PFAS that's out there, because let's face it, in the firefighting foam alone, we've used it for so long. So I know that there's a lot of agencies. The issue is there's only a couple places that will take it and get rid of it properly and put their name to it, so it becomes very expensive. Not to mention you have some holders of PFAS that are mass quantities, just like the airports, and to get rid of it properly, you should be flushing your tank 3 times, which means 3 more tanks full of volume of contaminants that you have to get rid of. So I know that there's several different plans, and everybody's kind of just trying to see if we're gonna do an amnesty day, but the funding has to come from somewhere. So the regulation got put out, but it wasn't funded, so to be continued. So I wish I had better news on that, but that's where we're at with it.
Chief, did you want to talk about risk and holding on to that product as well? Because they did talk a little bit about liability and risk and CERT. About making sure you keep that product until we figure out.
Right, well, it just like anything else, when you talk about being a facility and a holder of any kind of contaminant, right, you should have accountability for it. So if you are making the switch, make sure that you keep the product safe, and if you're doing the flushes, you have to basically keep that on hand too. So it becomes another problem of trying to keep mass quantities, and basically you have to be accountable and keep that secure. And I know the state is also, and we have state here today, you guys are going to be, I guess, penalizing or finding any releases if it's used on an incident, or how is that gonna work?
So just speaking with my upper management, if it is used in an incident, we're aware about it, like either if it gets in a storm drain or in soil, we're gonna require whoever caused, the incident to hire a contractor to excavate it, to remove it.
Okay, so it would go not really to the responding agencies, it would go to,
Yeah.
like most hazmat incidents, it's gonna go to whoever caused the problem.
Mhm.
So it'd be a product recovery, similar like contracting clip area. or
Yeah,
something
like
to
they'll
pump
have to
out the
hire a
drains.
contract, like they had a diesel spill, car got on fire, they also have to remove the diesel and the PFAS soil.
So it's getting more and more complex for.
Yeah,
agencies
more
that
costly.
haven't changed over yet.
How, is that like, is there written guidance on that? Cause I can just imagine an insurance company being like, well, I don't wanna pay for this removal.
I understand. In terms of written guidance, I can get back with you, but I don't know of any written guidance. I know I had a meeting one day with our upper management. And they mentioned that they're requiring them out. There was an incident up north that occurred. They had to excavate the soil for lab samples that the contaminants were brought home, so.
Wow. So we hit that threshold. We were talking about that at surface. I think we're finally at that point.
There's a CTO, yes, but I don't know, the CTO is all hang right now.
Piggyback off of some of the Chief Russo's points on the PFAS. We were also exploring the military holdings of the PFAS foam, not only just private airports and commercial airports, but the Air Force bases, for example, that have extreme large quantities. So they're also, the training task force along with CERC are looking at possibly having a collection point using the military collection. But then now we're looking at what type of storage, what quality of storage, are there leaking containers? Is there accuracy in reporting of quantities, that type of thing? So these questions are all being asked at a high level, but we don't really have any firm answers. And you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars of recovery. And as the chief said, there's only 3 collection points in the state. I think only 2 in the country.
For the PFAS,
Yeah,
there, it
no,
was
the country.
Texas, Colorado, and, yeah.
My mistake. And they're not taking it for free. So.
Those are incineration facilities, by the way,
Correct.
just the 3 that they mentioned,
Yeah,
but
very
there may be
specific
more
incineration facilities,
amnesty type.
specific temperature and off-gas collections and stuff like that.
So are most fire departments having had done this switch? Cause I know I inspected some BS, I guess they're managed by BSO sites that have a reasonable amount, 20 or 30 5-gallon pails of the fire foam. Are
I can tell you that we probably, in our region, we happen to be ahead of the game, hence the individuals that are sitting here. We have a lot of representation, Margate, Hialeah, Hollywood, Florida, BSO. I think you're probably seeing a lot more progress within our LEPC, probably more so than most areas in the state. And we're still struggling. For example, in Hollywood, we had, 4 pallets worth that was changed over via the vendor at an pretty exorbitant cost from us. But obviously, we saw the priority in getting it done and being proactive about it. So Hollywood's entire hard fleet plus the pail storage has been changed over. But not everybody has had the funding
Yeah.
and the opportunity and or the education to have it done. I would say our count, Broward County is probably 50%, and I would have to follow up with our other partner counties to see where they're at. I don't think Monroe County is as far along, and Miami-Dade is probably hit or miss depending on where the county's at.
The problem with that, and this has been brought up, we've tried to get numbers from who has it and who doesn't. But you can imagine if you're a director of an agency or a fire chief somewhere and you didn't really have an easy means to get rid of it, and people are sniffing around asking for, hey, how much do you have on hand? You might not be very forthcoming. So that's been a challenge too, to try to get some actual numbers to see what this whole thing is gonna cost. And we've talked about that at the last several meetings, you know, so it's kind of hard to say. But as LT said, this region has gotten lucky just from our involvement in part of the state initiative to make us aware of it early on. So the vendors jumped on it. And early on, I think the vendors had a larger role in trying to assist with getting rid of it than, you know, a couple years ago. I'm going back to what they're looking at now, because I think that dealing with the bottleneck on where you're gonna take it and the cost, it's creating a backlog. And of course, money is always the big factor, the driving factor on this.
Chief, did I believe it's one of the other chiefs from one of the other regions also talked about warehouses that the state had. And then I also want to bring up the fact that at any point in time, this stuff is gonna have to be transported
Right.
to get to an amnesty location or whatever the final decision is.
So, right, these are all the what ifs that get brought up. So, just like the EVs that were a result of Ian are sitting in a warehouse, and you've got several other warehouses that are filled with product that nobody really wants to have on hand. It was brought up, and then the question becomes, where do you put it? Who wants it there, and who's gonna pay for it? So there has been some discussion on that, but to my knowledge, it didn't go any further than that I can recall. So, the idea, in theory, is to do really what they did with the pesticides, is, do a little amnesty and get it out, but someone's gotta pay the bill, and the bill keeps getting bigger.
And who's gonna be allowed to participate?
Right, exactly. And then you have to make it non-punitive in order to get that buy-in from a lot of these departments. A lot of our own logistics personnel don't even know how much product is on hand spread across, entire counties with the fire stations and airports, what's on your trucks versus what's in the storage locker, what's in the closet at the station. And then now you have an extreme cost, and then now you have deadlines for collection. So Training Task Force Chief Lamb, they're actively still pursuing an amnesty day. And possibly, I think Strickland and John Conkey were looking at possibly helping them out for a collection rally point and trying to organize something like that. However, there hasn't been much progress in the last 6 months because of the difficulties, both in cost, accuracy, and transport.
Right, and then the transportation becomes an issue on making sure that we're putting it in the proper containers and.
Just imagine if that truck got in a wreck on the highway.
You can't just throw it into the 50-yarder or something?
Dump it in the lake next door. We'll just call Cliff Berry, he'll take care of it.
Well, I wasn't gonna go that way.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be a nice bill on my desk too, right?
Don't be, yeah, right, you're wearing a Hollywood shirt, don't be the one calling Cliff Berry. For hazard analysis working group report, they do have a presentation up, that, showcasing the RMP facilities. Basically the high risk, high contaminant facilities and, inspection process. And his name is not coming to me right now.
Talking about Tyler?
Tyler.
Nolan?
Tyler Noel.
Yeah, so Tyler gave a presentation, a PowerPoint presentation, which is housed on the RMP facilities and status on the report. So that is ongoing. As far as activities, update on the LEPC activities, the hazmat team assessment. So, over the years, the CERT, team assessment, there's a couple points on this. It has varied whether it was state personnel. State personnel has done it in conjunction with the LEPC. And they've also, done a couple different years of self-assessment, for the hazmat teams, which in my opinion has, a value, but I think a very limited value. And the other component to this is that even the assessment items, the data points themselves have really not been updated in a number of years. And that goes along with the CERC activities book that, someone would use as a student for hazmat 160 class to get certified, and then follow up with, it should be a guide for agencies that have hazmat techs to kind of guide you in what you should be staying up on for your hazmat continuing education. Which per the state, once you get certified, you're just magically certified forever. However, we all know that a week after that class, you probably forgot 75% of the facts and figures. So continuing education and changing technology is a big point. So with change comes opportunity. So we're at a juncture right now. I haven't said it all day. COVID created a situation where the hazmat assessments haven't been done in a couple years. So what the latest game plan is, and what was decided at the last CERC meeting, was to put a timeline for the state to seek third-party vendors to come in and do an assessment. In the meantime, all the hazmat teams in the region are to do a self-assessment using the current guidelines, which is going to be due October 31st. And that will be reported to FLAIR, to the state agency. And the reason for that is to get everybody kind of looking at the assessment again and contribute to what we think the changes should be. So what I've said to the hazmat teams in the region is let's be very active on this and not get in the habit of, yeah, we've got this, yeah, we do that, or, just looking at the old assessment and seeing where you're at. I don't want to say pencil whip, but let's put some real effort into it, along with, hey, how can we do this better? What applies, what doesn't? And then we have an opportunity to really make a difference in updating the documents that are going to be used as the golden rule moving forward. So that's where we're at. Charlene, I don't recall, I think the timeline to get a couple vendors in the pipeline was for the next CERC meeting, which was October.
I think
Was
they're gonna
October
bring
or
it back
end of the
up.
year?
I think they will be bringing it, they're gonna do some work on their side and it's gonna come up no matter what, so it'll be back on the agenda.
Or something out.
I haven't seen one, and that's why I deferred back to Charlene, because I was thinking, oh, okay, we're gonna decide this right now, that if we put a deadline to October and we fell just short of that. So I think the next meeting is when we'll have some information on that, so, yeah.
As a suggestion, if it makes people feel better, or gives us more of an air of objectivity, maybe mix it up and have people from outside come in to look at your stuff, just so that there's a balance here. And that way, because everybody here trains together anyway, it's not like anything's a secret. It would just give more credibility to the process, maybe.
We're very lucky in the process here in the region, is we have a lot of teams with a lot of collaboration, and I don't want to say a lot of funding. That's definitely never the issue with the situation in special ops and hazmat. However, there's ILAs in place, so there's funding sources, right? And there's cost recovery. So to that end, they're usually pretty transparent, but I think there's a huge value in what you're saying. And that's why I totally support a third party coming in. The only thing that we have to watch is, are they a consultant or are they a consultant and a vendor, which
You have to look
creates
for
a
bias,
problem.
right?
So I'm sure that's what we're gonna talk about in October, and that'll all get worked out. The RFP, whatever we can do to kind of get that message out, we'll be messaging out and opportunities for any stakeholders. But I think that's a great idea. Even if you're doing your own assessment, if you've got somebody that can come in and assist, you'll get a more objective look at what you have in your situation. So fire chiefs love having data and justification to ask for more money. So that's the way I see it, It's an opportunity.
So correct me if I'm wrong, two circuits, 6 months ago, they voted to try, when Guthrie was at St. Augustine, I believe. The original vote was to utilize some of the FM funding, I forget the name, the
OPS personnel,
OPS personnel.
that's a
So-
no-go.
So that fell through. So then the vote went to, at the last meeting, to pursue third-party vendor. And the decision is to be reached by the October meeting, whether or not that's gonna be a viable option.
No, it's going to be the option. That was what's
Yeah,
decided.
they were looking
So
at that funding.
it's gonna circle back to create a timeline. Because if you don't create a timeline, we'll be talking about this in 2 years when I'm getting ready for my retirement party. So you gotta put a timeline on it to get the wheels turning.
If you think about the scale of that project, there are 33 state-funded teams among several others that are non-funded. And so not only are they gonna look at team assessment, task books and equipment, but placement, the GIS of those teams, where does the state want certain teams? Are we too bunched up in certain areas? Or are those bunches validated because of ports, airports, all of that, more hazard reserve response, Port Canaveral, Port Miami, Everglades, such. So it could affect people's ability to operate teams and or receive funding for teams. And then, of course, we're gonna try to piggyback TRT on the hazmat as much as possible, because there is an overlap. So it's gonna be a complex project. It's gonna take some time to figure out.
Just like the PFAS thing. There's a lot of unintended and it becomes a spider web of things that get affected. But I think the biggest takeaway from where I'm concerned is the opportunity to update really the guides, the criteria, and what we're training our personnel on. Right, and it hasn't been done to my knowledge, any significant change in at least the past 15 years, and that's being conservative. Right, so it's time for an update. All right, so hazardous materials incidents report. No report to the next CERC. FDEM is switching to a new state watch office system, which the timeline on that will be the next meeting. So we're coming up, I think that was brought to our attention one meeting ago, so it was a pretty quick timeline to get that in service. So for the incident reporting, I'm imagining, Charlene, correct me if I'm wrong, that is really regarding once something is reported to the state watch office, and once it goes down the tree and comes back out, some of the data points and how that information looks when it goes back out to stakeholders.
I would assume that's part of it. They didn't get into the weeds with it, so they are going through an update, but I even had a question I posed to the chief recently on the data issues, like, okay, like I'm getting these incident reports back and I wanted a little background on it. And actually, chief, if you want to do a little high level on that, because I may
Sure.
not be the only person that needs a little bit of that background from our membership.
Sure, so, I think the best way to explain it is, let's say that we do have a hazardous materials release. And it's something that meets criteria that should be reported to the state watch office. Well, first things first, usually the proper channel is set up in, local or regional SOGs that you go through the county to go through the state. That doesn't have to take place, or if you have reason to believe that, dispatch usually would be your mechanism for that, that might not take place, or you're seeking some extra guidance, you can call the state directly. I keep both numbers in my phone, and I usually have no problem calling the state. Over the years, there's been a little trepidation from certain agencies on when they want to call the state. And I really don't know why. It's basically you're making people aware of a situation that you have, should you need some further assistance and guidance all the way through recovery. So let's use the hot topic. We'll use lithium ion. So that's been a mandatory report since December 20th of last year. That was one of our initiatives. So thank you all for that. So let's say, we had one here in Hollywood, which we have, and, I called the state. So the incident commander calls the state, either the county or the state directly. And what they're gonna do is they're gonna ask you a couple questions. And the intent is, number one, to try to get a beat on what the scope of the problem is, and to get additional resources and also recovery stakeholders involved, should that be needed. Right, so in the lithium ion problem, my next call that I should receive is going to be either further information from the state EOC, if it's a large enough incident, or it's gonna be FDEM. And when they call back, that lets me know that, hey, it worked, the notifications are going out. And the point of FDEM calling back is to see if they have to have an inspector go out and evaluate, number one. But the value to the incident commander is what I try to stress. The value to the incident commander is that now I have some guidance on what we're gonna do with this product when everything is done. If it's a small enough battery, the household hazardous waste that are in the region that are active, that they've vetted, is usually what they're gonna suggest. I know in my incident last October, that was in December or January. But anyway, I digress. They suggested, I think, 3 different facilities where we could have gotten rid of the batteries. And I don't recall, I don't think we needed a response on that one because they were small batteries. But what happens then is everybody in the region that is a stakeholder, including the LEPC coordinator, gets the data. And what Charlene is referring to is, when you look at that report, it's a little ambiguous on what information is there. And that has to do with a couple things. Number one, whoever took the call and what they put in as far as the description, what was given to the call taker and what is put in. And just remember, the purpose of the report is just a general notification to FDEM, and if we need any other stakeholders or responding agencies. So Charlene's question to me is, well, where's the real story? Right? Where does that get documented? And that's incumbent on the AHJ, so the responding agency. The responding agency is responsible for their total incident report on any fire or hazmat incident. In Hollywood, our software is NIFRS compliant, which is the National Fire Incident Reporting System, which will soon be changing to NIRS. And without going into the weeds, that is a voluntary program for reporting unless you take any federal dollars, and then it becomes a mandatory reporting, and you're supposed to be accurate with it. So there are data points in a NIFRS report that are a little bit more of what you're asking about, but the key is the narrative. So I would key in, if you really wanted to do any reach back or find out a story on what happened for lessons learned, or hey, I have this potential problem, this would affect me, which I would imagine that would be our greatest concern. You're looking at the jurisdiction and points of contact, like who called it in, right? That's your most valuable information to get anything else that is gonna be available to you. Remember, all that stuff is public record. So there's a process that will vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, but you can get your hands on the report. But if you really want to know the scope of what went on, I would reach back to whoever the reporter was. That's your best line of communication. Right, and to that point, I can tell you that in our region and in neighboring regions, there has been a, I don't want to say an uptick in incidents. There's been an uptick in reporting with the mandatory reporting. And there's been a lot of small scale battery incidents that have resulted in some pretty significant damage or potential hazardous situations. So the most recent one that comes to mind is just a drill battery, a household drill battery in a full two-car garage in the St. Lucie area, while charging, had a rapid off gas. So you're talking about what, 6 to 8 of those little 18650 cells. That off gas is very flammable. I won't call it explosive. Technically, it's a little slower than that, but it's gonna definitely great. And it had enough overpressure once that cloud flashed to displace probably about 20 feet of drywall. And on the opposite, it was up against the wall that would lead into the house. So the other side of the garage, the big garage door, the metal door, was deformed and knocked off its tracks. That's from one household drill battery. So that just speaks to how much energy density is packed into these batteries. So the reporting is definitely a good thing, but to what your question was, Charlene, that's the best answer I can give you is there is more comprehensive reporting. And then the other thing to look at is I would get with FDEM on their reporting and their recovery plan, you know, with the stakeholders and contractors at the end of the day for a full report.
Thanks, Chief. I just want to make sure that you guys are getting the data back so that you can make very good decisions about safety. So that was it came full circle after that conversation, those details. So I'm like, I'm not seeing that data, and I know we need that data to keep you all safe out there. So thank you for that. I didn't know who did or did not know that. That's not always everyone at the table subject matter expertise. So thank you for that explanation.
And listen, sometimes we're not, you know, it's the gas companies a lot. So Brent was just showing me the gas leak or Cliff Berry. You know, when we have a private agency with that public-private relationship, and they have to be a part of the plan too, right? So when they show up, especially on these rollovers and the big fuel spills, that's usually a report to the command post and make a plan and go from there. So everybody got a lesson. There you go, Charlene. So what else do we have? Where was I? Oh, risk management program participation. I did not confirm with Lieutenant Guernsey whether we sent the teams out or not. We had the RMP team was doing some facility inspections. I think there were 3 in the Broward region that we were going to try to have our hazmat teams meet up with those inspectors to do the facility inspection. It was marked on the calendars as a drill day. So I apologize. Dave is with Captain Gallardo all up there planning our other events, so. You said that they're gonna be back in town?
Yeah, Chris Stevens, gave me some additional dates. Those are all gonna be out of Miami-Dade, and I can push those out as interest, but, we're looking to establish a closer rapport with our partners who are doing these. It gives us an opportunity for our teams to go in to the facilities, as part of the regulation and oversight, and so I think it's a very good thing, and it's being encouraged. Chris Stevens would really like to have our teams go to these, so, you folks, by the way, we have other people here in the room. If you have interest, just reach out to me and I'll give you the upcoming dates. So, the ones for Broward, I believe, are completed this time. So these will be for Miami-Dade coming.
And lastly, we didn't have enough going on, the FEMA, the National Exercise Program, event. So, as we stated, I think we stated it in the last meeting, that, our, Shannon and Charlene's, for the most part, effort, I mean, we just read the thing a couple of times and said, looks great. The revision of the, hazmat emergency response plan, which was adopted by the region, and will be a part of, any response, and, this will be a guide that sits in all the EOCs from Broward down to, Monroe, has been taken from a document that was 200+ pages to an actual working document that is around 70, well, it has to be 70 pages now, so you won't have to use it as a cure for insomnia. It flows a lot better, it's a lot more appealing, and it's a usable document. So when you, God forbid, you do have to refer to that, you definitely would rather go through what you have now than would you. So that was a monster of a project. Charlene did submit that to FEMA as part of the National Exercise Program. It was accepted. And we do have another upcoming meeting to plan for that. So it is our intention to house that document exercise to test the document, which has also never been done in my tenure with any fire rescue, let alone LEPC. We've offered the Hollywood EOC, and there'll be more to come on that. There's a long timeline on this one, for their involvement, and, some simulated events, I would imagine, is how we're gonna be able to refer to the document and test the document. So we'll have a lot of stakeholders in that. Director of Broward EM, Clay Pacheco, has also offered a lot of his support, and the Broward EOC if we need it, but selfishly, I'd like to keep it in-house if I can, but it might grow a little bigger than that, so I'm glad he offered, so we can, we have some plans. We have a plan A and a plan B, which is always good. Training task force report, enough out of me. Oscar.
All right, I'm gonna kick off with, sorry, Brian. I'll kick it off to Brian first and then I'll.
Don't worry, I'll throw it right out.
This section, the training task force and some of the vice chair reports are gonna go a little bit faster, because most of the things that, on this list, we've already discussed pretty in depth. A lot of what we discuss as project boxes from the training task force with Oscar's help end up going to CERC, so the CERC report also often reflects that. So we'll just make sure that we didn't miss any gaps on there. So the first line item is the Gopher Industries. That has to do with the black mass and the lithium, the heavy metal recycling programs. So Gopher Industries did give a presentation at CERC and at TTF. And they were talking about the financial difficulties, the economic incentive, and the just the difficulty in separating all those heavy metals and where the lithium recovery kind of stands as far as that infrastructure works. Good, very informational presentation. And that just kind of piggyback off what the chief was discussing about the CERC presentation there. With that being said, it led right into the overlapping discussion with recovery of materials, recycling materials, handling of hazardous materials, products and storage. It led right into the PFAS conversation, which led right into the pesticide recovery conversation. So for those that aren't, didn't catch all the clear details, back in a few years back, when we had a pesticide cleanup, the project was a clean sweep, and there was like a full amnesty where state funded to go and collect all these materials. People didn't kind of hide them in a corner, no, I don't have anything, don't worry about me over here. We wanted open accuracy and accurate and honest, collection from those items. That leads into PFAS, that leads into lithium storage, lithium recovery, lithium recycling plants, and those types of things. So the notes that you see on your agenda about pesticide amnesty and the clean sweep program, that's how all those projects kind of overlap into one another. So we are looking at an amnesty day, we are looking at a clean sweep like thing for both PFAS, and then that led into the Gopher presentation for lithium recycling. The F500 foam testing, carried that out at the State Fire Marshal's office recently. I'll kick that one back to you, Oscar, because I wasn't present for that one.
So we did a research burn, late July with the state. And we had a nice collaboration between the University of Miami, for some field reporting. We had F500 that was donated. And 10-8, that donated some equipment for us to wear to get some data from that. The F500 foam testing is still, it's gonna be ongoing. Nothing is conclusive yet, from what we got from our one burn, because we weren't able to do multiple burns with it. So we only got, one lithium fire burn and one car. So we were able to use the F500 there. It did encapsulate the smoke particles, like they said. But there's obviously some other issues that we have to go through for the use that we used it for. While we were there, we tried to get the product to the batteries. But we're not as successful as we thought we were gonna be, to get it there. Which rolls into the lithium ion symposium that is gonna be hosted at the Fire Academy as well in Ocala on September 12th and 13th, where we're going to have, I think it's a total of 14 speakers, 15 speakers. At least, they may be adding some speakers to that as well. It's over 2 days. They're expecting over 250 registered attendees. They had 250 last year, registered attendees. When they did a head count, I think there were over 300 people there.
Back fence was open.
Yeah, so they're expecting greater than 300 this year, obviously because of the buzz that's going around. And we'll have guest speakers from the EPA all the way down to local subject matter experts. And we're gonna have some demonstrations. We'll have from small batteries being burnt and hopefully a deflagration, so people can see what happens when you encapsulate the battery and actually ignite it. To tactics, the second day, using 2 different vehicles, multiple different tactics on those vehicles. And then one new tactic, which is manufacturer that comes out and they can cut the material, so rendering the batteries inoperable when the batteries are cut. So we'll see after we use it from there.
The ultimate firehouse slogan, we'll see.
We'll see. We'll see what happens. There'll be more information after we do the demonstration. And we're actually gonna use the vehicle that we burned for our research. We're gonna use that to cut those batteries, so.
Obviously, a lot of success last year, you know, your LEPC presented the certificates of appreciation and the Utami Award to Rodriguez, GPOs, Chiefs of the Valley. And then, so they're running it back even bigger and better this year. You guys are doing a lot of great work, and you know, we are the direct benefit of that, and thank you. Moving on to the offshore hazmat pilot program. So the 4th data analysis is in progress. We talked about how they just completed the final pilot up in North Florida. And the Coast Guard announced at CERC that they have full intention of taking that information from those pilot programs that started right here. And they're gonna implement that into national policy. So a lot of success, a lot of national recognition, not only from the training task force and from CERC, but from this LEPC as well. So hats off to you guys for all that work. Some of the additional project boxes, offshore hazmat pilot, I think we discussed that in depth already. I think we covered that bullet point as well. Lithium ion, so Strickland is also going to be heavily involved with your lithium ion symposium. Not only Director Joanne Rice, and John Conkey, but now Strickland is in the mix as well. So we have some big heavy hitters at the state level really getting involved. So it should be some high level information coming out this year. I'm curious to see what results you have with your encapsulating agents and your other tactics that you guys are investigating. The PFAS foam, I think we touched on that one as well. We discussed the Air Force Base storage and all the other difficulties with the changeover in product to the fluorine-free product and the cost that incurs, incineration difficulties and all that. We are still pursuing the amnesty day. No relief on that yet. We'll keep pressing the issue. Let's see. For DEP. DEP, are you aware of this bullet point here as far as the Sam Graves advised for Fish and Wildlife, developing a GIS platform? You may or may not have a little bit more education on that than I would.
Honestly, that's the first time I'm hearing about it.
All right, so obviously, DEP on the state level, they're looking at a little bit more of a statewide response for some of the graphical interface systems. And we're looking forward to seeing some of the results on that. As soon as I get more information from that, I'll be sure to update you guys. Once again, to go for a resource as far as the lithium ion recycling, some of these, like I said, are a little redundant on the training task force side, because the training task force this past meeting really mirrored the CERT. And then, of course, we got district reports from the LEPCs. Nothing too outstanding from there. They're all doing quite a lot of work on their own personal level with their own personal needs. On to,
There's one item there
What do you
that's kind of significant.
what did we miss?
Mr. Delp is gonna be retiring,
Oh, yes.
so they're gonna be looking for a chair of chairs.
Correct, and October will be nominations for the LEPC Chair of Chairs. For those of you who aren't aware, obviously there's 10 LEPCs, 10 emergency management districts in the state. And then we have one of those members represent all of the LEPCs to the state commission. That individual is resigning from his position. He's gonna start de-escalating all his efforts, hopefully into a well-earned retirement. And we are gonna need to vote on a new chair of chairs.
Which
So
is the state
nominations
appointment.
Will be held. October meeting. There are some people who've been doing the job a long time, who are very well respected. I'm sure there's one or two expectations, so those discussions will take place at this October circuit.
Yeah, and that is kind of where it gets a little more serious for your volunteerism, because you're appointed by the governor to the CERN. So you better be on the Friday meetings and wearing your suit and everything else, so.
Uniform better be nice and pressed.
And you're the liaison to all 10 of me that call and complain about issues, so
Just happy to be here, sir.
that's how that one goes. So I'm pretty curious. I haven't heard anything on gotten any calls personally on hey, what about this person or that person, or who really put the big interest in, so I know it's a big responsibility.
Yeah, we can,
Should give
I
us
can
all the
send a
gossip.
feeler out to Rob Dietrich and see if he's got any candidate nominations. I haven't heard anything personally.
I got one or two names in mind, but we'll see if it plays out that way.
Yeah, I was gonna throw some hint bombs, but I'm just gonna stay quiet.
All right. Oscar, thanks again for all your work on the training task force. Moving on to the planning and training working groups. Once again, a lot of these have already been discussed, so we'll just kind of breeze through and we'll touch base. If you guys have any questions, if I move too fast, just let me know. First and foremost, the peak WMD system has been approved as one of our training expenses through the LEPC. So we funded that for our tri-county local teams, our hazardous materials teams. The peak WMD software has a lot of the things that the Flow MES has as far as tier 2 site data reporting, and it does have plume modeling and other things like that. So the LEPC has provided training in the initial subscription costs for the local hazmat teams, and then it'll be on the teams from there to continue those subscription costs. So it has a direct positive impact on our hazardous materials responders in our local area. So that is where some of our training allocation, our dollars and our approval went at this past quarter. There's also a 3-year plan in progress where we discussed with the coordinator and the working group members on how do we want to prioritize some of our local training dollars and our budgets. And if you look at your notes, you'll see that we definitely prioritize some of the propane incident response. There's an 8-hour class that's going to be pushed out. There's a 24-hour propane class, advanced tactics, rapid ID, hazardous analysis, some of those hazmat tech courses for our responders. They're also continuing to push out 1 to 2 hazmat 160 courses for technician training every year. That's done on the Broward County level through the ILA with our 4 teams, and we extend that out to our other shareholders and our stakeholders in Miami-Dade and Monroe. A little bit more gas tanker truck emergency, and we're working with some flare off work, and I'll get to you in just a second, I promise, all right?
And Lieutenant, if I
Yes,
could add, Chair, Vice Chair, sorry, just for those folks who are participating, remotely. So, there were part of that 3-year course plan, as you well know, we had these courses that were requested, so, we have some follow-up to do on those, speaking for myself. We were waiting until we had to wait to get the finalization on the peak WMD because I didn't know where the cost was. And so there's a little bit of admin on the backside with our partners from all of our other hazmat teams from Monroe and Miami-Dade, just to solidify their interest in participating in that. And we can have a really sound numbers and budget. And then I can come back to the course requests, and those will move pretty quickly, but before we close the door on the peak WMD, we want to be absolutely certain that the partners that want to participate do. So we do it one and done, and we get everybody that wants to be a part of that to be a part of that. I just wanted to, for my role and the admin side of things, where that's at.
Exactly. For those members who are not at the working group meetings, all right, we're always looking for more participation. The more ideas that we can share, the better. On the last working group meeting, we really focused on a prioritization of those requests. So what are the most common and or cost efficient and or, what outside resources are not available. For example, a lot of the HAZWOPER classes, we direct them over to Nova Southeastern where they host a class, and we focus on providing resources that aren't quite as available elsewhere. So we really focused on having a nice priority list of where we need to be. And then after the peak settles down, we should still have some funding available. We will revisit the working group, and then we will determine where else can we make some progress on those items. On to training, some of these items we discussed once again, all right, so Heat Shield 5 was conducted, there were a lot of lessons learned, I think it was a big success, one of the biggest components was the July heats, which we were discussing on the holiday level this morning. We did have some hazmat members have to take a significant and immediate rehab, so even some of our most experienced and in shape firefighters and hazmat technicians, they got hit hard. Being in those hazmat suits, thinking and acting and performing physical skills under pressure. It's taxing, especially in the South Florida summer heat. So that was probably the biggest takeaway, along with a lot of other things. At the Region 7 Special Ops Meeting, Guernsey has a lot more information for us on a regional level. Big success, UASI and Special Ops, they'll give us some more updates in the near future. Region 7 Hospital Forum for Broward EOM. The tank over rollover training coming up in October, hosted by Miss Georgie at Cliff Berry. Care to give us some insight on that?
So Cliff Berry and L2 Defense are partnering to do a tanker rollover drill in October, the 8th, 9th, and 10th. That's so that all the different shifts for the fire departments can come, so it'll be the same class each day. The first portion of the drill will be a classroom portion where we'll go over incident command, unified command, talking about what the different stakeholders are looking for. It'll give a chance for FHP to talk, or for the environmental departments to talk, and everyone to just kind of have a good idea of what each individual's goal is during these incidents. We'll then do a walk around of all the equipment that we have, including the tanker that we're gonna have there. We decided we're not gonna actually roll over the tractor, but we'll have a tractor there to go over the technical stuff of it that's beyond me, cutting which wires and whatnot. Then we will break for lunch. And then after that, we will do a full drill of tapping a tank. So on a flyer for it, we had people coming from Palm Beach, Monroe, Broward, Miami. We would love emergency managers, FHP, fire, anyone that is a stakeholder in an incident like that. We would love to have some representation there and to have your guys' input. And if it goes well, our plan is to hopefully do it yearly, so.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Not only, I was gonna say, thank you for all your involvement. When you first approached me with it, I was like, well, you're gonna get a big awakening on how this all comes together with who wants to always be a part of these things, because they're so few and far between, and it is a skill that we do use, but, so we've got a lot of involvement, so thank you, and thank you to Cliff Barry. But I will also add a request from, the director of VFA, Mark Wilson. And really this is for, the responding, agencies that are gonna be a part of the drill. If you could, whoever your director is, if you're gonna be participating, if you could just give Mark Wilson an email to say that your intent is to participate. I think it goes a long way. What he's gonna do is use those emails as far as the billing of, because it goes through Broward County Schools. And then I think magically the billing will be a good. So it doesn't mean that you're gonna send it and get a bill. It's the opposite. We're just kind of justify that we have a lot of participation in the region and it'll be a good training exercise. And then he's gonna work his magic and hopefully there's a $0 amount at the end of it, which is what's always happened in the past with Director Wilson. So really, that's targeted towards, I think the fire rescue is really his big concern, though. Or if you think you're gonna have a lot of people present, it wouldn't hurt to just shoot him in the email or let him know.
Yeah, I was gonna give them the final kind of
Oh, there
day
you
or
go.
two, or a week or two before, like, hey, this is what we're expecting.
Mhm.
So hopefully.
All right, I'll let you know what he drinks when you have that conversation.
The answer is yes. All right, in addition to that, we have the pipeline safety training upcoming, October 17th to 24th. And then, we also have the State Urban Search and Rescue, the SUSAR Tech, the symposium is coming to Orlando in November. All right, we'll get you, additional information on that.
Where did we land on, where's that gonna be, the pipeline training? That's indoors lecture, right?
Yeah, Chief, I haven't spoken with Paradigm during my remote work in the month of
Mhm.
August. I will follow up with them because I'm interested to know too, and hopefully I'll have an answer that I can bring to the regional
Okay.
special ops meeting on that. But that is mandatory. They're required to do that on an annual basis, and so, as with all our trainings, everybody from within the region is welcome and encouraged to participate, and there's no
It's good
cost,
training.
and they will feed you.
It's usually a very good presentation.
Now,
Lambo's interested. It's usually at Signature Grant, but I think they're doing renovations or something. That was
Yeah,
the issue.
they've got
right?
another venue. I think they were looking at Nova, but don't hold me to it. I'll find out. I'll report back as soon as I get more details.
that's what I heard, Nova, but I can't.
Yeah.
All of our work with Transcare is finally coming to fruition. All right, thank you, Charlene, for being the spearhead on that. So we're looking at a actual live ammonia release, and we're partnering with Airgas. The reps are flying all over the country, helping us out. And we got a partnership with the National Guard over in Miramar, where they're gonna use that location, and we are going to do a live product release as part of our drill and our training on that. So that should be an excellent way to round out our October training. We're gonna start with Cliff Berry's project, and we're gonna work all our way over to an ammonia release, and that's gonna be quite the event, I think. So that's gonna be October 29th through the 31st at the Miramar Armory, the National Guard Armory, and that's going to be a partnership with Airgas and Publix as far as their anhydrous ammonia products.
And I'm leaving here today to go up to Publix because he flew in from Houston. Damien Fickerman's our contact from our Air Gas. He's the national rep from the Southeast, but he's meeting up with our partners at Publix and some on our Chief Russo was mentioning some of our special operations teams that are up there to work with them. So I'll go up today to see how I can advance the program as well. So
Did we,
thank you to Airgas for really stepping up and helping
Absolutely.
us out.
in addition, just the resource planning as far as training and planning work group items, they also offer to ship in materials for our own training off time. So we're in discussions of getting some of their tankers and some of their products hosted at some of our training facilities so that we have access to those resources. I mean, they straight up just said, oh, well, we're gonna drive a truck and park it in your yard. That way you guys can get hands on it. So we're gonna be continuing to work on other kind of lower level resources, a little bit more hands-on resources. So we'll keep you informed on any of the progress on that.
And then the last item on the list is the FEMA National Exercise Program. As we mentioned before, we did get approved for our our response plan, our hazardous materials emergency response plan that Shannon took a change law to. We did get FEMA approval for that, so we're gonna have a FEMA exercise director assisting us to put together a tabletop exercise. And then with that tabletop exercise, coupled with the regional Hollywood EOC exercise that we completed last quarter, the two tabletop exercises will fulfill our requirement for annual exercises this year. It's a little hot during the summer. Last year, we did the big chlorine release over at BFA. This year, we decided to tackle the two tabletops. And then we'll start our planning for hopefully a more live drill for our annual exercise next year. But those two tabletops are gonna satisfy that need, and I think in a big way. I think it's necessary. I think it's gonna be a big add. Anything else to add, Ms. Charlene? Did we miss anything on those?
No, just that the FEMA program is probably gonna run all the way through 2026. The way that they have the planning meetings set up, but wherever we're at with that, that is for all of our partners. I know we had heard, just as an example, I know June Youth Around had repeatedly, she really needed information and resources as a facility owner and operator. And I know this LEPC is very big on public-private partnerships, cooperative partnerships. And so that's one of the big things that we're gonna have as part of that is we want everybody at the table and having a voice in the conversation. So as we advance with the folks up at FEMA, what that's going to look like, we'll keep you posted. And the only other thing I can say about FEMA, if I could just step back for 1 second to the heat shield. Chief, we were talking about it before the start of the meeting, and we're very concerned about the extreme heat that our teams endured. And so I did go up to PHMSA. I wasn't able to stay at the meeting. But I did hear from them and they said, hey, we talked about a cooling rig, and they said, well, if it's not for training, maybe talk to the folks at PHMSA. So it's good that we have a good rapport established, and we'll continue to work with them. And John's here in the room, so we can talk to John afterwards. And I want to make sure before we end here that John gets an opportunity to talk to everybody about PHMSA as well. So thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we definitely want to make one of our primary objectives of using the ERP for the training, the tabletop exercise. Obviously, it's stuff that we do every single day as responders, but we really want to make sure that we put that plan to the test as far as private industry and private facility ownership. We want to make sure that it's protecting the community on that level as well. It often gets overlooked when you're talking about hazard mitigation. But that preparation and response on the private industry level is sometimes even more important. We want to make sure that our stakeholders there are well equipped. So that's going to be a main objective of our tabletop, is to press it on the private industry side. That being said, all yours, Ms. Charlene. Coordinator's update.
Yeah, I think I've just been chiming in throughout. Just all I have to say about the statewide meetings is I have pushed for quite a while and coming on and not having anyone to transition with, and learning by fire, the trial by fire. It was challenging, and so I really pushed the state to have coordinated meetings with all the LEPC coordinators, and they finally started that. And I'm real grateful to FDM for making that happen, because there are people who've been doing this for a while, and I need those tools and those resources to help me, because in the end, it's all about mutual success. Things might come downhill, but everybody's got to report to somebody. So, we want everyone to be successful. And the more that we know, the better prepared that we are to answer our deliverables, work better with our partners, bring the tools and resources that are needed at the local level. So that's been helpful. We have, just conversations among the LEPC coordinators about things that work, things that don't work. And then we get back with the state, which is part of that whole objective, was to say, hey, we've been talking about this. It's an issue. We need to address it. And so you'll hear things more come out at the State Emergency Response Commission meetings. And then anything that comes back, of course, we'll bring it right here to the LEPC. So it's going well. And then the last item is PHMSA conference did just take place on Monday and Tuesday, and we are very fortunate. I don't think this happens a lot, but we actually have our regional representative from PHMSA with us. I had a feeling he was coming, but I knew he's bringing on new staff too. Her name is Danita. So, if it's okay with you, Chief, I'd love to turn the floor over to John
Absolutely.
for a few minutes to talk about all the things that the PHMSA does and how they coordinate and collaborate with the state and then with us, what that means at the local level.
Absolutely. It's a good overview and thank you for taking the trip and, good to have you here.
And you might tell us about the conference too, if you would like.
I'll do what I can. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Charlene. Thanks for the introduction. My name is John Hennigan. I'm the Regional Director of the U.S. Department of Transportation Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration, PHMSA. What is PHMSA? PHMSA is a small little agency that most people have no idea who we are, but you probably know us because we write the Emergency Response Guidebook. We just updated that. Hopefully you have all those in place currently. We also do the HMEP grant, which I think you're all aware of. Now, I am the regional director. I have field operations, so I am not a specialist when it comes to the grant. That being said, we're definitely meeting with the right people and putting those ideas forward. I know the grant goes for a lot of training. I'm not sure it really goes for stuff. So again, not my specialty, but you were there at the meeting, as was I for a little while, and you're talking to the right people. So hopefully you as a state LEPC, you as the state, you as all of the leaders that met in Washington to ask for changes can maybe put some political pressure, not only on the agency, but your elected representatives to modify that grant so that you can have some changes on how you can utilize those funds. At the meeting, I had a bunch of conversations. I was there for a few hours and I saw all of my state representatives. I cover 8 states, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands. I have 10 investigators, so I was there to try to make sure that I met the good people like Charlene and the other state coordinators. And there was a bunch of states that had, well, how do we spend all this? I can't spend all my HMEP grant money, believe it or not. And I said, well, did you know that you can send them to the Florida Hazmat Symposium? That's available. You can send them. Well, they didn't know about that, so I was telling the good people of Kentucky and South Carolina about the Florida Hazmat Symposium and how those funds could be used there. So kudos for that. I always think that is a wonderful operation that you put together. And now it's not just for Florida, but it's national, if not international. So kudos across the board for everybody involved. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I have been with the DOT for 34 years. I have been with PHMSA or RISPA for 20, almost 30 years. I've been the regional director in charge of the 8 states, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands for the last 28. I have been around for a long time. I have some close connections to South Florida. I was the lead investigator in the Value Jet crash for my agency. I was down at Tamiami Airport. So I go back to 96. I was heavily involved in that. I was heavily involved in the Port Everglades triple fatality for a cryogenic gas. So I've been on scene for a number of things. I have 10 investigators and we do incident follow-up as well as inspecting chemical companies, making sure they're shipping hazardous materials correctly. We have done a number of lithium battery fires, really big ones, things like the battery recycling plants that have, and storage facilities that have caught on fire. We have done a number of those and tried to get our technical experts from DC, our chemists and engineers to try to figure out what's going on with these things. And we did attend the Florida Symposium in Ocala last year, and I think I will be at this year's attendance, but we had some of our technical experts from DC, I mean, literally battery brainiacs on scene, trying to learn to figure all this out for everybody. So it's an ongoing problem. We also have some training opportunities and training specialists that attend either meetings like this or put on classes. I'm here to assist you. I'm here as your federal representative. I'm here to do anything I can to make the safe transportation of hazardous materials, improve it. If I can save it, if I can save anybody from having an incident in the future, let me know how I can assist. If you have operations that are happening in Port Everglades or Miami or something that you want a PHMSA hazmat investigator or somebody on scene just to be aware of, let us know. We do multi-agency strike force operations where we will go to a port. The Coast Guard will be doing Coast Guard work. PHMSA will be looking at the hazmat, and motor carrier will be looking at the truck drivers, and, you know, everybody goes to one location to do their own job, but we're all doing it together in one place. And sometimes those are interesting, and they get some press, and they let the world know that we are all there and care about what's going through, let's say, that port or that location. So we're open to do those types of things as well. But really, I'm here to answer any other questions. Make sure you have my business card. Make sure you know that I'm here to assist. One other thing, let me just tell you shortly. Besides shipping of hazardous materials, PHMSA is also the lead agency when it comes to packaging. So if you've ever looked at a cylinder, it says DOT right at the top of it. It's my agency that ensures that those cylinders are manufactured and maintained correctly. So we do inspections of those manufacturing facilities. In fact, would you believe that we also go overseas to make sure those cylinders are made correctly? Myself, does anybody have a soda stream? You know what a soda stream machine is? Yeah, okay, you know what it is. Basically, you make your own bubbly water. Well, there's little cylinders of carbon dioxide that are shipped all around the United States. You know where those things come from? Israel. So the machinery and all the cylinders are made in Israel. I had to go to Israel to make sure those cylinders are manufactured correctly. So I have investigators looking at those types of things. When a cylinder explodes, we care a lot, because we don't know if that cylinder has been misused, been in service for 20 years, and something went wrong with the requalification. More importantly, I don't know if the cylinder is brand new and was manufactured incorrectly, or has a manufacturing defect whereby we are now worried about all the cylinders ever made by that company. So we try to track everything down that way. I was involved in a fatality in O'Brien, Florida, a couple of years ago with a proprietary welding gas that was being used in cylinders. And we determined through testing at NASA that gas was 19% acetylene, which needs you might want to have a porous mass, you might want to have a little acetone in there. Well, this proprietary welding gas, that company is no longer in business, but I was heavily involved in that investigation as well. So that's the type of work that we do as a small little agency. And again, I'm here to assist and support, and really just say thank you for all you do for keeping the American public safe. So thank you.
Well, John, I would say thank you as well, because just speaking from the hazmat team's training, that grant is very not only valuable, it's a major part of funding for us for continuing training and high level training that we use in the region. And, as I said before, there's not a great deal of funding in most agencies, for training. And then if you break it down as a subset of training into special operations, then you have the added costs of having to stay up on new technology and new equipment and timelines with that. So I really like what you said. It's kind of our big mindset is, hey, if that's not allowed, or this grant is for this, well, if the mission of the grant is to make these incidents go better and make the teams better, maybe it's time to go bigger and look at some of the out of the box solutions, or bring it to other people's attention and see what we can do and have some influence there. So
I can tell you that my boss's boss, the deputy administrator, Tristan Brown, basically spoke and said, if changes need to be made, we need to let our political leadership know that. And that goes with every US senator and representative that you have connections with.
So, I mean, this is how we get stuff done. So this is how these committees and stakeholders and teams could get things done to the mission.
I was with Mr. Brown in Nashville, Tennessee, talking to the fire chief in charge of hazmat operations in Nashville. We're only talking about the HMEP grant, what it can be used for and what it can't be used for. And he was talking again, let's talk to political leadership. Your senators, I can push a little bit on my end, but in reality, those type of conversations should really bubble from the bottom up. So those conversations are happening.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that. And again, thanks for being here. This is one of these agencies you don't hear about a lot, hopefully, but you're really glad that they're there when you need them. And if you're a responder, make sure you save that card. When you're out there, you need the resource. If you want to talk about institutional knowledge, you talk about that man right there, right? In that role for 28 years. he might have forgot more than, the guy next to him, he knows. So, good to have you.
Thank you, sir.
So where are we at, Charlene? We should just be, if you are happy with all your updates and the resources that you have there in your minutes. We have some upcoming meetings, I guess.
Jenny mentioned, Danita's coming on board.
Yes.
So can you tell us what Danita will be doing and how? she
Anita
might-
is our community liaison, so basically she'll be working with the community, hopefully getting up to speed and being able to give some basic training classes of certain things. Probably the emergency response guidebook and some things of that nature. On top of that, she will be responsible for dealing with all community activities, which would include the LEPCs. So, you know, they're happening all around the southeast on a pretty regular basis, so the opportunity to dial in remote is helpful. So she'll be doing those types of things as well. I will say, thank you for having your websites updated, the LEPCs, you know, I do a quick search and I'm like, okay, which part of the state? I try to figure out who has meetings and where can I go, and they're not always up to par, they're not always easy to find, not always. Agendas aren't readily available, so if yours is, thank you, because again, we only can participate when we really know about it. And over time, you will have Danita's information. I'm sure you'll be sending her out information regarding your meeting, so thank you in advance for that. But yeah, that'll be the role, the community liaison.
Thank you. I'm good, sir. I didn't have anything additional.
All right, so I'll just say, some of the upcoming meetings and, I'll add, one more item here and we'll all say goodbye. So apologies for the long meeting, everybody, but, as I said to begin with, we had a lot going on. We actually kind of make the most of, using all of our assets here and we're making some good changes. So thank you to everybody for that. So upcoming meetings, the next South Florida LEPC meeting will be November 20th. The intent, and I think we have approval and confirmation of that being an on-the-road meeting. So if you're not coming on the field trip, you'll be on the computer. But we're trying to get whoever wants to come down. I have reached out to Monroe. I have some ideas of maximizing our time down there and doing a class or two. But also we need to leave a little time to go enjoy Monroe County as well, right? If we're on the road. So that will be November 20th, in person and Zoom. The next CERC meeting, the quarterly, is October 17th and 18th in Orlando. Training Task Force is the 17th, along with the LEPC. The Training Task Force is at 9:30 in the morning. 13:30, which is 1:30, will be also on the 17th, and the big meeting, the Emergency Response Commission meeting will be Friday, the 18th at 9:30. So again, another item that is coming up, I'll confirm it. I believe it's gonna be earlier in October, also in Orlando, will be the Energy Storage Systems, the Rural Workshop. I just want to confirm that it's attached to the Safety Symposium and not the CERC meeting, and then I'll give that to you, Charlene, so you can get out. I've also sent you the flyer, Charlene. There's gonna be a first responder forum, Chief Rodriguez and myself, along with some representatives from Sheridan Vocational, BSO, Miami Beach from the inspector side. We'll be speaking on lithium ion prior to the opening of the auto show. At the EV test track back there. We're gonna have a question and answer session and talk a little bit about our lessons learned over the past year. And some manufacturers will talk about some of the technology, some of the safety built into the technology. So that should be interesting. What they also do, the auto show grants first responders a first responder day for free admission. It's not the same day, it's on the 3rd. However, I always make the agreement with the event organizer that the first responders from Broward can kind of hang around after the forum and look around because everything's already set up. So usually they make us leave for a half hour and then the show opens. This year, the show opens at 3, but I have been assured that if you go down there to listen to what everybody has to say, that we can walk around the show and it won't be totally active, but it'll be just about there, so. If you can't make it back on the third. And one more thing, one of, our fire inspectors, has created a class that she presented. Megan Grimsley, interviewed myself, Lieutenant Brown, and Charlene, to bring attention and kind of showcase the LEPC and our role, as it pertains to the inspection and pre-planning side of things, which is kind of right up your alley. She says hello, by the way. And she really knocked it out of the park. As a matter of fact, I'm sending her presentation. So she presented that to the Fire Inspectors Association of Broward County, which it sparked a lot of questions. It brought a lot of awareness to what inspectors should be doing as far as number one, tier 2 facility reports and what to do if you do find things, and some a lot of cross-pollination, I'll say, with a lot of the people sitting here. So what I've also done is brought that attention to the National Fire Academy and some of our contacts there that we're also looking for an LEPC awareness. So I'm almost done with my email now, and that's going to be presented with her permission, either online or in some fashion. We're going to give access to the National Fire Academy. So I'm sure, likewise, she'll give me permission for us to distribute that. You'll have to speak fire inspector speak, so we might have to have do some translation, but we can put that out there. Let me just run it by her real quick, and we can put that out there. I just want to give her kudos for that. We're always trying to get awareness out, right? And people, what is the LEPC? I get that quite a lot, even in fire rescue, even at state meetings. There it is. It's one more avenue to try to bring, and I'm glad the NFA has, the reason I submitted it, because I knew that Dave Donahue up there, who has a Florida history, one of his initiatives at the federal level is to try to bring awareness from the hazmat world and kind of cross it over to what we do and the implications. So there it is. So that's all I have. Does anybody have anything else for good and welfare, or anything else for that matter, besides you're hungry for lunch?
Yes, but secondary to that, that's the most important thing. I just want to bring attention to the fact, especially with Tim's in the room, the next training task force meeting, we should get all of the details for the upcoming hazmat symposium, because this will be the last CERC meeting prior to the implementation of the hazmat symposium. All right, and so once again, wouldn't be able to do it without the funding over there from John and his team. And it's a great experience. We should be able to bring all of the planning details from Chief Plan back to you guys at the next meeting, which should all be just about ironed out by now. That's it. Are we good? Lunch.
Do you want to do
I have,
member comments, roundtable?
Absolutely.
yeah, if I may, sorry, thank you.
Please.
Just wanted to mention, and as you probably know, the World Cup is taking place in 2026 in several venues across North America, and Hard Rock will be hosting 7 of those matches. Our director, Pete Gomez, is named the lead in that endeavor for both emergency preparedness and training and exercises. So we're currently putting together a list of training courses to bring down here as part of the preparation for those matches. So we're soliciting, any recommendations of what courses those should be. And we're also looking for partners who could be part of the training and exercise committee, as well as just taking part in the overall planning for those matches. So
Excellent.
you can reach out to me directly or contact Charlene. She has my information, and then just to make sure that we, bring down the courses that would have the most value for our, partners and stakeholders.
I think the insight into that actual live event will be really beneficial to everybody involved. We have the opportunity to share a lot of ideas and see what exactly that event's gonna look like as far as the
Right.
preparedness. Piggybacking off of that, we gotta get with Chickarelli, because the Broward County, the ILA, the hazmat teams, we're actually doing a CBRN RAD awareness, hopefully at the Emirates arena, the Panthers arena, upcoming pretty soon. So if we get some information at the local level, we'll bring it up to the LEPC. you know, it might be similar to what you guys are planning for.
Yeah,
You know, I'm sure it's gonna be a little bit more large scale.
yeah, and there were a lot of lessons learned from the Copa final. That was,
Yeah, say, if Bobo was any indicator, right?
yeah, so at least we have some time to kind of, shore up some of those gaps. That was more on the, I guess, the security side than
Sure.
anything else, but, yeah, those soccer fans are a different breed.
Yeah.
They're not, so,
Well, there were also, a lot of them were staying at Dania Point down the street
Mhm.
right.
on the other side of Sterling. And, I mean, we've got video of thousands in the day before. Just block party, and then, I mean, it got to the point that, lighting fireworks and, covering traffic and, all good intended fun, but there's definitely, repercussions that go throughout a city, with things like that, so. I don't envy that position at all, but I'm sure we'll have some involvement.
I'm sure, and perhaps with the Seaburn rep, you know, maybe we can get you guys involved in our practice, and then we can send our rep down to you guys, and we can kind of share some ideas.
Okay, please, yeah, that sounds good.
So, lastly, on that note, for Broward EM, Director Pacheco wanted us to mention, we need to give a link here, but I would.
I have it.
You have the
got it,
link?
sir. Yeah.
So there is a job opportunity. So they're looking for an EM specialist planner position at Broward County OEM. So email Charlene. Oh, wait, I mean, it is there on governmentjobs.com. So emergency management specialist. So if anybody wants a career change, not you, Charlene. Who's the listing? And, so I guess we need a motion to adjourn. That's an official.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. There we go. You got your technical data there. So, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? No. Nobody said no. Let's
Chief,
go.
I don't think anyone online has anything either. I'm gonna double check right now before we look back.
Are there people online?
Anything in the chat that, yeah.
Let me give you, I'm gonna give you guys my hazmat coordinator's information, I'm gonna write it down right now. For the.
We will.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's a long timeline.
Either exercise plans or.
We'll probably-
I was looking at you.
This is my card here. I really use this kind of a thing. It's, this is Dave.
Well, again, I should also say that.